once again, hello everybody. Hello. We wait one more minute so everybody can join and then we get started. Or actually, it's already 2 minutes past 3, so I guess we can kick this off. Once again, a warm welcome. Welcome to today's webinar. Myself and my colleague Günther will talk today about recent major changes in the Google Ads world. And to be more precise and give you a brief overview what you can expect today, I'm going to talk about Performance Max today. That will be covered in the first half of the session, whereby we will talk about what is Performance Max, what are the advantages and disadvantages, and implications, as well as strategic possibilities. And my colleague Günther, already present as well, will talk about responsive search ads, implications hereby, why it matters, and he will also share some best practice solutions. My name is Christopher. I'm going to be the host of today's session. And before we start, I quickly want to do some housekeeping. So if you have any questions, feel free to post your questions within the Q&A section of the Zoom meeting. And also, I want to let you know that we're going to record the session. So if you need to drop out at some point, no worries, we're going to share the recording afterwards. Yeah, and without further ado, let's jump right into it. Performance Max campaigns, quite a buzzword already this year. And that's why we thought it would be great to share some insights and some first experience we made with this kind of format. And yeah, I'm going to talk about Performance Max today. Some of the participants maybe already know me from previous talks. My name is Christopher. Most people also call me Stoffel. I'm a product manager here at Smart Ecommerce in the field of shopping ad automation, whereby I gained in the last 7 years a lot of know-how in the field of product listing ads and also in the field of product management. I'm quite passionate about digital advertising and new technologies, as well as sports and motorbikes. And yeah, if there are any remaining questions after the session, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or via my email address, christopher.rogl@smarter-ecommerce.com in order to get your questions answered. What can you expect today in regards to Performance Max? So we are going to talk about Performance Max in general. So what is this new campaign type all about? We're looking into advantages and disadvantages and also possible implications and how you might mitigate them, as well as strategic possibilities. We are not going to talk about how to set up Performance Max campaigns or how to manage them. There's a lot of coverage by Google itself out there. And we're also not looking into how does Performance Max influence my performance, as I highly believe this needs to be discovered by every single one on their own. And yeah, there are different results already out there, and everyone should get their own picture in regards to the success of this new campaign type. Yeah, what are Performance Max campaigns? So Performance Max campaigns, the term already is around for quite a while now. I think it was already introduced like 1 or 1.5 years ago during one of the Google fairs. And by last year, Performance Max was made publicly available to all advertisers. And with Performance Max, Google created and added a new campaign type to its ecosystem, which allows advertisers to access a unified buying service across all Google Ads inventory. That means you can cover all kinds of different Google Ads throughout one campaign type named Performance Max, and you can run ads on YouTube, display, search, discover, Gmail, and Maps. This is a great deal because you can reduce complexity in ads management, and you also free up time and resources to focus on more strategic and maybe more relevant topics. Good to know hereby is that Performance Max is going to replace local and smart shopping campaigns. And a recent announcement also made clear in regards to timeline and next steps, what this means. And this is that Google will replace local and smart shopping campaigns by latest September. That means ideally, if you are running smart shopping campaigns, you make a decision beforehand whether or not moving to Performance Max campaigns or remaining active with regular campaign types like regular shopping. When we look at Performance Max, there are some major changes we should talk about. So first of all, Performance Max allows you, as we already mentioned, to access the entire Google Ads inventory and run ads across this entire inventory. That means you can run search campaigns, you can run shopping campaigns, and you can run display campaigns throughout this new campaign type. And Google will automatically serve campaigns on the different kind of inventory across Google's inventory, whilst leveraging capabilities of smart bidding. So basically, Google is doing the job for you in regards to bid decision-making as well as placement decision-making, and also decides which kind of ad best fits to your target audience. At the center, at the heart of Performance Max campaigns are asset groups. And asset groups contain different kind of information necessary to run and display your ads. And this information is a link to a merchant center and the products you want to cover within this campaign type, assets such as descriptive text, images, logo, URLs, and more. Looking at the Google Ads UI on the right-hand side of the screen, we see basically 3 sections when setting up and managing asset groups, whereby you have the possibility to define the merchant center account you want to use, the products you want to target, the URL you want to display and leads and possible clients to, and as already mentioned, images and logos, videos, and so on, which can be added and managed throughout this campaign type. And this is very interesting to know because Google made quite a transition hereby. So if you remember in the early days when there were not even shopping ads out there, there was a lot of buzz around keywords, and keywords were in the center of the activities. Through a time, they shifted more and more to put a focus on products. And now we are there putting more focus on assets, covering products and all kind of different creatives within this campaign type. When we talk about Performance Max, we should also briefly discuss implications when activating Performance Max, especially if you still use and target products or other services via your regular campaigns. So let's assume you run different kind of regular campaigns within the section campaign 1, and you target the same inventory throughout Performance Max campaign 2. Then the question arises, which campaign is actually serving my ads in the end? And here applies a very interesting mechanism, which is that in most cases, the ad rank decides currently whether or not your campaign and actually your ad will be served via regular campaigns, which are still live and active, or via Performance Max. And as you can see on the ad delivery, in the ad delivery column, that, for example, in the case of search, video, and discover, as well as local, the ad rank decides whether or not Performance Max is in use. When it comes to regular shopping campaigns and partially to display campaigns, in the majority of the cases, PMax is automatically advertising your ads across Google's ads inventory. This also leads to an interesting assumption, which is, and take this with a grain of salt, is Google to replace this higher ad rank scheme throughout putting more priority on Performance Max at some point in time? That means rather than having this mechanism in place, whether or not an ad rank decides if your ad will be shown via campaign 1 or via campaign 2, it's very likely that Google pushes forward in the direction putting more focus on Performance Max and adding higher priority to this new campaign type. And this is very interesting and relevant, I guess, for everyone, as Performance Max also withholds several advantages and disadvantages we want to talk about. And we also want to talk about which implications this might have and how you can mitigate certain strategies and situations. So on the advantage side, I guess this is quite clear. One can benefit from accessing a broad audience and advertise products and services across the entire Google Ads inventory. Whilst doing so, you can benefit from reduced efforts in campaign setup and management. And you can also benefit from the smart bidding algorithm, which is applied across the entire inventory and used to target and manage your ads for the right target audience. In sum, on the advantage side, this means it frees up time, especially in regards to campaign setup and management, which you can then use to put focus on more strategic topics. What we mean with strategic topics will we cover later on. Looking into the disadvantages, I think there are two overarching themes here. One is giving up control and actually handing over more control to Google itself. And the other topic is the transparency, which gets reduced as you need to give up certain insights. When we talk about control, what do we exactly mean hereby? As Performance Max covers the majority of Google Ads inventory, you do not have a lot of possibilities to change budget or set budgets on or for different types of ads. So you might were used to set budgets for display or for shopping individually. You now have to set one budget for Performance Max if you use it entirely within your account. The same applies for goal settings. And you also lack possibilities in regards to exclusions. That means you do not have the possibility to exclude certain ads to be shown. So you do not have the possibility to exclude video ads to be shown. And this is upon Google to decide whether or not your target audience can be reached by that. In addition to that, there's also some dependency on Google's bidding algorithm, as this is the only applicable bidding algorithm you can use. So you also need to give up manual bidding. And in regards to transparency, you lack insights in regards to performance per individual ad type. That means you do not know how the performance looks like for display ads, how the performance looks like for shopping ads. All you get access to is whether or not overall Performance Max drives additional value to your business or not. In addition to that, there are certain reports which cannot be made available, at least from today's point of view, which is something which we already know and are used to, the smart shopping from smart shopping campaigns. This is the Shortterm report. And also the impression share report is also something which is not available any longer whilst using Performance Max. Interestingly, whilst running a small LinkedIn survey, the majority of people who participated throughout this survey came to the same conclusion, that transparency and control is the biggest challenge when it comes to using and moving to Performance Max. And some identified also the lack of examples and references as a deal breaker when it comes to the use of Performance Max. Yeah, and the minor share stated that the setup as well as the switch to Performance Max withholds some hurdles. So now we covered some of the basics when it comes to Performance Max. I would say let's jump a little bit beyond that and discuss 3 explicit implications of Performance Max in regards to ad management. First of all, we want to look into channel consolidation. The second topic is organizational impact. And lastly, we are going to look into the available tactical levers which remain whilst using Performance Max. channel consolidation. This is a very interesting topic, especially if you're already longer acting in the field of Google Ads. You might went through a lot of different scenarios how you can properly reflect your ads throughout the entire sales funnel. So let me briefly talk about it. So most of you likely know this. This is a typical sales funnel where you have different levels, starting with awareness, following up interest and desire, and at the bottom end, there's action. When we look at nowadays campaign types, we see different possibilities how to access different audiences across the sales funnel. Often we see display ads as a high-level entry point to create brand awareness, to create some visibility. And then we have regular text ads, mostly within the mid and lower funnel section. And when it comes to driving actual sales, often regular shopping campaigns are used. The great thing about this structure, and most of you, I guess, also learned this over time, is that you have a lot of control and transparency across this funneling structure. And you can apply different goals and budgets to each of these stages. And you can, for example, treat new customer acquisition differently within display ads compared to regular shopping campaigns. With PMax, and from my point of view, this is one of the biggest hurdles nowadays, you need to rethink this entire scenario and management. With PMax, you do not have the possibility to decide on an individual basis which budget you want to apply or which ROAS goal you want to go for. You can only set one ROAS goal and one budget by every Performance Max campaign you create. And with this budget and with this ROAS goal, you target the audience and you advertise the products or services you add to this Performance Max campaign. That means, in a nutshell, you have limited possibilities hereby, and you might need to activate some of the levers we are going to talk about within section 3 in order to mitigate this. Someone raised the hand, just pointing out that we are not doing a live Q&A. So if you have a question, just post it in the chat and we will pick it up later on to discuss it during a Q&A section at the end of the session. Let's move on and talk a bit about organizational impact. And before going into more details, I want to bring up a quote from Ginny Marvin, who at that time was an editor at Search Engine Land and now is part of Google as Google Ads liaison, and who said back then, as Google is breaking down the media silos of its properties, many brands and agencies will need to consider their own internal team structures at both strategic and tactical levels. A very nice quote, especially if you consider this was already from 2019, where Performance Max was not really yet around the corner. And it's a quote in relation to smart shopping campaigns. So already at this point in time, reconsidering team structures at both strategic and tactical level was a necessary thing you had to do whilst moving or activating smart shopping campaigns. And this gets more important, especially once moving to Performance Max, as we will see now with this example. So when we are thinking about small and medium businesses, it's quite typical in our experience that there is often one or there are often several online marketing managers managing one or several target countries. And mostly the focus relies on regular search and shopping campaigns. In this scenario, Performance Max does not have such a big impact. Likely, it's actually very fitting, as you can reduce workload, you can reduce complexity, and you can focus on more strategic topics. And yeah, you can also access a broader Google Ads inventory, such as video ads or display ads, which were maybe not covered yet due to missing resources. So there are not that many big implications for this segment, but thinking about enterprise businesses where you often see bigger marketing teams led by a head of marketing with a content marketer, with social ads team, and also with a SEO team, where often you have specialists employed for different type of ads. This might be an actual trickier topic, as everything gets combined in one campaign type. So let's picture that someone might have a SEO team consisting out of a search, a shopping, and a display advertising specialist, and you transition to Performance Max fully. As we have heard earlier, everything is combined within one campaign type, within Performance Max. You have one goal and one budget you can set. So what are you doing with the specialist in the field of search, shopping, and display? You need to rethink and reconsider what you're going to do with these freed up resources and how you still can make get the advantages out of their expertise. And also here, I want to advocate and point out that the shift towards more strategic relevant topics might be a necessary and valuable next step to move on here and create additional room for improvement and also increasing competitiveness. So I was talking a lot about strategic, the shift to more strategic optimization levers and to more strategic work. So let me pick up this topic again, and let's look a little bit beyond the surface, what is actually meant here. So when we look at regular campaigns, most of you leverage a lot of different settings in order to improve and run sufficient ads. And everyone who is closely working within a Google Ads account knows that there are a lot of things you can influence and activate. And this starts with setting a budget per campaign type and channel, working and optimizing campaign structures, setting a goal per campaign type, as we have already seen, one for display, one for shopping, one for search. You have several adjustment possibilities like seasonal adjustments, adjustments in regards to placements, in regards to devices, in regards to even search terms, if you apply strategies like query split approaches. You can leverage the search term report. You can choose bidding algorithm alternatives to smart bidding. You can also rely on manual bidding still. And you have access to different campaign type reports, as we already mentioned, impression share report to get a better understanding how your competition is doing and if they're putting more pressure on you and stuff like this. And this can be again used to further optimize your activities. On the other hand, when we look into Performance Max campaigns, there are basically three and a half, 4 major areas which you can influence and which we would say are more or less the strategic levers you can pull in order to improve your activities. So first of all, we got assets there. Second of all, the conversion value. Third, audiences, and lastly, others, which we will briefly talk about now. So when we talk about asset, and as you have already seen while going through the introduction, there's a lot of things you can do there. So first of all, you need to add creatives. So not just simply product images, but also creative assets showing the product in its natural environment, showing people interacting with the product and so on. And you need to put a focus on adding enough creatives, adding creatives according to the audience or theme you want to promote, add highly relevant videos. Otherwise, Google is doing that for you. And if you listen to some market voices, they are not highly relevant, mostly, at least for now. And you can also experiment and test out different landing pages. When we talk about conversion value, which is one of the biggest remaining levers, it might be smart to transition to other metrics rather than a pure revenue-based approach. So what we often see nowadays is people focusing on revenue as conversion value, but you can also bring in profit on transactional level rather than on product level, or more ambitious metrics like customer lifetime value. You can also use new customer acquisition values to bring in there, or any other objective which you can assign a value to. And a tip hereby, use Google's offline conversion import, as it allows you to connect an ad click with an actual transaction and gives you the room and the possibilities to upload any return, any value you want to use in order to manage your campaigns. The third topic which you can and should look into are audiences. So a big topic whilst using Performance Max campaigns is audience and audience lists you add to the Performance Max campaign, whereby they mainly act as some kind of framework within Performance Max. That means they're not as explicit targeted as with your regular campaigns, but still give Google a better understanding who your target audience is and for whom they should go for. Hereby, you can leverage Google Analytics data, for example, and you can run analyses like the RFM framework, which stands for recency, frequency, and monetary value, where you subdivide your audience list or your audiences into different buckets depending on purchasing power, frequency, and so on. And yeah, lastly, we got others, an other section. This is still important, as you still can bring in custom labels and bring in competition price data or recent price changes, for example, to structure campaigns and set different ROAS goals upon it. And I can also recommend you to look out for newer features. So it's very likely, since the campaign type itself is pretty new, that Google will promote and share additional features in the future. So getting to the last part of the presentation, and I guess this is one of the biggest questions and maybe one reason why you joined today: should I actually switch to Performance Max campaigns? There is no unified answer to that one. This highly depends on your strategy, on your business structure, and whether or not you can and want to hand over control to Google and have the possibility to put focus on other topics. Nevertheless, what I can advise you and recommend, start testing early, especially if you're using Smart Shopping already until now and you made some good experience with it. I recommend switching to Performance Max rather than keep Smart Shopping active, and test out how Performance Max can help your business to create better results. If you're not yet that eager with this campaign type and you are unsecure whether or not this is actually something you want to use in the future, we can also recommend using hybrid setups. That means that you run existing campaigns alongside Performance Max campaigns, and you can follow different strategies. So as we already have heard, Performance Max allows you to target the entire Google Ads inventory. So it might be a good campaign type to promote newly added items or to promote certain items throughout your long tail, which do not create a lot of attention and awareness throughout Google Ads. And it might give them an additional boost, and you can test out some things. On the other hand, by keeping your regular campaigns active, you still can benefit from more transparency and control. You can still use the funnel management, which we were discussing earlier, and you can still access maybe highly relevant reports like the Shortterm report or impression share report. To sum it up, from my point of view, Performance Max offers a great entry point, especially for smaller organizations. And this is something which we have already seen, and likely you agree to that when Smart Shopping was provided. It gives you the possibility to achieve even greater coverage throughout Google Ad inventory. Not everyone has the possibility to create a highly sophisticated video about the products. So Performance Max could do you a favor hereby. And you also receive the advantage of freeing up some resources and time, which allows you to put focus on maybe more strategic relevant topics, not only the things which are directly connected to Google Ads are relevant here, but also things like restock, demand, pricing might be a topic you want to look out for and where you want to put resources on, as they might free up depending on your internal structure. Yeah, and what's ahead, as already briefly covered, it's very likely, since the campaign type is pretty new, that Google will add additional functionality hereby. Everyone who used smart shopping in the past knows about the one-click experiment. There's something in the pipeline to support such a one-click experiment with PMax as well. And there are other features ahead, which likely will come in order to help you get more out of PMax. Lastly, I want to point out, and this might be also a very relevant question to you, standard shopping campaigns will remain, regular shopping campaigns will remain. So this was already confirmed by Google, in that case again, Ginny Marvin, that regular campaign types will remain and can be used even if you run and use Performance Max campaigns. So regardless for which strategy you decide for, whether or not you want to move to Performance Max or you want to remain with your regular campaign types, there's still place and room for regular campaign types, especially standard shopping in the future. With these words, I'm at the end of my session. I hope it was interesting for you. And I want to hand over to my colleague Günther, who will run a short and brief Q&A session now. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Stauffer. An amazing session. And I think due to the fact that we have quite a few questions, also a really hot topic right now. So without further ado, let's start into the Q&A session. And I would like to start with one question which was brought up, which is highly interesting. You have mentioned regular shopping campaigns. Which value do you see in the future, or which value do you believe will regular shopping campaigns have?
Yeah, I hope I could briefly cover it within my talk. So when it comes to regular shopping campaigns, as already outlined, there are still some very valuable use cases, especially whilst running PMax in a hybrid setup within your account. So as the past has shown, regular shopping campaign allow you to access the search term report. It allows you to have a little bit more control about your assortment and certain settings you can make. You can set manual bids, which might be also highly relevant if you want to create a lot of visibility for certain items. And in such combinations, regular shopping campaigns can be a powerful lever. And given the fact that it's very likely that Google will transition more and more towards PMax, and as we have seen today, ad rank is plays currently still a highly relevant role. It's likely that this will change and Performance Max will have more priority in the future. So this might also affect other regular campaign types that you consider certain setups, and hereby such hybrid approaches can totally make sense.
Thanks a lot. Then moving on with the next question, I think many of people in the audience are asking, so when you're setting up Performance Max, how can I be assured that there is no cannibalization of other campaigns? How can I make sure that Performance Max is not eating into our maybe good working campaigns?
Yeah, this depends. So if you want to target the same assortment, so if you want to target the same products with your regular campaigns as well as with your PMax campaigns, then within shopping, you're actually at the losing end. As we have already heard, PMax is overruling regular shopping campaigns hereby. When it comes to regular search campaigns, you can, for example, work a lot with exact match type, which has higher priority right now than Performance Max. In all other cases, it's mostly the ad rank which decides on whether or not your ad is triggered by PMax or by regular campaigns. So there's not much to do here. On the other hand, and this is actually the recommended approach, it would be better to think about, yeah, which products actually do I want to promote via this approach and which products via that approach. And then you split it up. So you split it up and put one segment of products within PMax and one segment of products within your regular campaigns. And then you ensure that there's no cannibalization to say in regards to your advertising strategy.
All right, thanks a lot. The questions are popping up. So just be assured, once again, if we are not able to answer all of your questions, we are always trying to follow up with that. So no question is lost. Just be assured we don't have, unfortunately, the time to ask all of yours. So next question. Hi, Chris, on the PMax assets, how could we test URL landing page if we can't see what URLs of our customers are taking to? Don't think Google shows that.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I don't think that Google shares this yet. Maybe there's some solution coming in the future. I mean, it's just some learning you can make by setting up 2 asset groups, whereby you target maybe the same products and assets, and you just add different landing pages to it. And then you can see which ad and asset group actually triggers and is creating traffic, because Google will anyway decide what is a better fit for your target audience hereby. And this could be one way to test it. There's also another more implicit way. So via some workarounds, you might can access this information by using Google Analytics data and click IDs. You might be able to connect an ad click to a certain landing page. This is a more challenging topic. Might be necessary to follow up here. So whoever asked this, feel free to ping me on LinkedIn or write me a mail so we can follow up here.
All right, Christopher, thanks a lot. I think we will definitely come back to all of you who have asked additional questions in there. As I said before, unfortunately, the time today is really limited, but as I can see with all the questions and also with the amount of attendees, this topic is really interesting for you. And as I said before, we will follow up with all your questions. And as Stoffer has referred to, if you cannot wait, feel free to contact him directly via LinkedIn or through email. So I guess we've come to the end of the first part. And as Christopher has already introduced the topics today, we stay in the playing field or in the area where Google is working, specifically on the changes that Google has announced last year and is doing actually actionize this year. And the major part when it comes to search ads is the responsive search ads. So I'm going to talk to you about these changes. I'm going to lead you through the topic, showing you best practices, but also once again revisit what the changes have been and how drastically they impact search ads. My name is Günther. I work for over 10 years in the search environment and product development. I'm here at SMAC responsible for search ad automation, and therefore have had a chance and a lot of experience, especially through the last few months, looking into what is changing with RSS. But before we're getting into the topic, we have heard from Christopher, from Stoffer, that there is a new campaign type, Performance Max, also impacting search. But the good thing there is what he also has presented, there is also real value for dedicated search campaigns. So he has mentioned it also in the question segment, the exact match right now, definitely the playing field where search campaigns will be having a higher priority. And on the phrase match is the deciding factor is the ad rank. And as long as the ad rank is the deciding factor, the better the ad is, the better suited the ad is, the more precise the ad is, the better it is, and the better the performance will be. So keep that in mind if you're thinking in the future, and also as Stoffer has said, there is definitely a place for standard campaigns, especially when it comes to search, as this is clearly outlined by the way Google is structuring it right now. So make sure to keep that in mind, also moving forward when thinking about Performance Max. But without further ado, let's not talk too much about Performance Max. Let's talk about the responsive search ads. I will start with giving you a short preview of what you will know after the session. You will know the implications of the sunset of the ETAs. You will know the importance of how and to adopt to RSAs, and you will definitely know the best practice solutions for handling RSAs, both in the short and in the long term. Let's start with a look onto the implications. Last year, at the end of August, when Google announced that they are sunsetting the ETAs, it was quite an uproar. There was a long post from Google basically explaining what they are trying to achieve, even though the writing has already been on the wall. So they have decided to move RSAs as the standard campaign type already in the spring of 2021. And then basically at the end of August, they have announced to sunset the ETAs. By the way, Microsoft is following the approach. They have announced this in the fall of 2021 and are doing it on the same date in June. So by June 30th, the ETAs are not able to be created anymore. The results or the feedback from the market was quite mixed. Search Engine Land basically commented on it that this is the latest move that Google is making to push automation through the ads and the ad products. And what they are trying to achieve there is really thinking about the last resort of unidentified searches. They are always saying that 15% of unidentified searches are coming up. And with all of their automation efforts, they are trying to close this gap, or basically trying to identify those 15% and make sure that they are actionable. Individuals were a little bit more critical. Looking onto the feedback that was on Twitter, also from strong people, strong voices within the SEA community, basically did not really like it. But the fact is that the change is coming and we need to adapt. So really interesting on the stuff is how and what are the intentions from Google, how to work with those. And therefore, it is pretty clear what Google is trying to achieve when thinking about those unidentified searches. They're trying to make it easier to show the right message, and they are trying to serve the correct combination. They believe that the control should rely in their hands. They believe that they are able to create better ads, that we all on the advertisement field are doing so. As a result, RSAs are the major force moving forward when it comes to text ads. And specifically, what does this mean for us is new ETAs cannot be created and advertised from the 30th of June. And more importantly, a new approach how to create text ads, campaigns, and ad groups needs to be implemented, especially for retail. The good thing is, in the future with RSAs, or already right now with RSAs, it will be much easier to show the right message for the right query. We are all already gaining flexibility and we all already benefit from machine learning. But the counter argument and drawbacks there are, we will have reduced control over text ads. That's a fact, especially when it comes to what kind of message can be delivered. And regarding the assets, in that regard, we are talking about text for headlines, text for descriptions. The perfect fit of the text ad, the landing page, and the keywords get lost. And there, we just need to trust Google that within their algorithms, within their machine learning systems, they will be able to cover this and in the end, make a better performance for us. Before we jump into how to work with RSAs, I would like to once again revisit the implications on a little more detailed level. Because it's really important to understand that at the end, ETAs and RSIs look the same. The ad itself will be the same that the user is seeing, but the difference is in certain areas or playing fields. On the ETA side, we have focus on a few assets with static usage, and the RSA side, we are looking for many assets with dynamic usage. ETAs are basically, it's recommended on the ETA side just to use 3 ad copies. On the RSA side, it's basically 1 ad copy. You have through the 3 ad copies, the differentiation in between the different ones on the ETA side. And on the RSA side, you have the differentiation in between the headlines and the different descriptions. And really important to understand is the keyword itself is a central part on the ETAs, and on the RSA side, it's just a complementary piece. And if you keep that in mind, then you will see that the way you are texting your ad copies and the way you're structuring your campaigns might be different than it was in the past. Just in general to say, ETRs were really about control and RSAs are flexibility and basically trying to discover new stuff. All right. Why adopting to RSS is so important? In the end, Google is basically already giving us the information that there is enough accurate data out there and that their automated solution, especially when it comes to bidding, are better than what it was in the past, but not only that, but that it's better than what we all can create with ETAs. The responsive searches, in effect, offer true query time optimization. The interesting part here is that with all the assets you have, Google now can freely make the best suitable ad on the time when a user is searching for it. And that enables basically a new playing field and also a new performance, so to speak, for us. Because in the end, everything that is important for us is the performance. And if this is right, then I guess what Google is doing is also helping our cases. In the end, we will have the possibility to show more relevant messages for each user based on their search behavior. And of course, as we already have mentioned at the beginning, RSRs are not exclusively, they can also be combined, especially thinking about Performance Max. So what I've said on the intentions on Google, we always bring to our forefront, we always need to bring to our thoughts. Basically, 15% of search queries every day are new searches and are never seen before. And the automation is key on keeping pace. RSR will help us making sure that with a slimmer structure, we are still able to serve more ads. All right, now we are getting into the interesting part when it comes to real changes and what we suggest moving forward. But before we are talking about the campaign structure and how to move forward with a dedicated new RSR approach, let's talk about in general the text ad copies and what is changing there. So as I already said, with all the different combinations, you need to rethink the way you are going to create ads. Many of us have already done that. And for those who are heavily relying on ETAs, please make sure to keep this in mind. The focus in the future should not only be product related, but it also should be on general messages. Highlight USPs, highlight your brand message. Think about strong CTAs, call to actions, and make sure that the message is differently. If you are able to have 15 different headlines with strong messages, Google then can make sure that they are taking their machine learning into the equation and get out the most of it. The thing, as I mentioned already beforehand, is do not use the keywords or the products or the services too extensively in headlines and descriptions. Because if you're using it on all 15 headlines, there is no true differentiation for Google. You're not taking advantage of the full power that Google is handing over you and giving you. And last but not least, and this is really the most important question, the most important fact here, keep in mind that the headlines and descriptions should be interchangeable. They should all be combinable because in the end, Google then can decide what's best for you, what's best for your performance. Enough on the text ad copy side. Let's go into details on how we think in the future RSAs should be structured. The campaigns should be structured. Sorry for that. And I'm going to start with a status quo and immediate steps that you could take already right now in the next few days to improve your campaigns. And we are talking about really here of clustering campaigns and ad groups. If you, for example, have in use category and color combination, category and size combination, group them together into one category and combination. Make sure to include synonyms as keywords, but be advertised that you have the main goal which you should reach in reducing granularity. So make sure that you all the really granular campaigns you have, like for example, a category, brand, and color campaign, that you think about maybe reducing it to a category and manufacturer campaign, and move forward with this. Think about more generic keywords, think about more generic texts, and make sure that you take advantage of the machine learning and the full power of Google in here. How could such examples look like? When it comes to category combination, all those ad groups that might have been separated in dedicated campaigns, group them together in one. Choose red, choose size 41. But also think about synonyms in that regard. Boot red, cleat red, cowboy, boot red, loafer, bump, dustbuster. Those can be, of course, right now, dedicated ad groups. It can also be in the future. It doesn't mean that you need to change, but we are advising you, we are consulting in here that it's better to think about synonyms in a way as additional keywords and not dedicated ad groups. If you're already doing it, then great, you already have the first step taken to make sure you take full advantage of RSAs. Moving forward to a more short-term solution, which might require some changes. And I bring up the funnel that Stoffer has already presented beforehand. And I'm going to dissect this into the 3 parts that are relevant for search. You always have the awareness, but there in search, you're specifically talking about general category topics, general brand topics. The middle of the funnel is always where the buyer already has interest, where the user already is looking for something more specific. And it's really where the power comes into place of RSAs. And the bottom of the funnel is really where you're talking about converting buyers who already know a lot about the product, and also where you can basically serve with long tail ads. And thinking about how a structure there can be applied, think about of dedicated campaigns on those funnel levels. You have one upper funnel campaign. It includes ad groups that are like Tommy Hilfiger, Georgs, shoes and sunglasses, all included into one upper funnel campaign. Mid funnel campaign, think about those category and brand combinations, category and manufacturer combinations. And on the lower funnel campaign, think about product lines, think about cheat-ins, think about ambience, think about products if you really have strong products where you know it's worthwhile advertising. But the true value in here is really on the mid-funnel campaigns, because this is more or less highly complex, but there is a lot of value there because people out there are looking for it. In the end, everything comes down to a true solution where we believe, also where our vision there is heading to, for the long term. And for the long term, we are going to grasp a theory, or basically a topic that Google has already introduced a few years ago: business objectives. Business objectives for shopping is already something that Google is working with, that also might some of you already out there are working with. We believe that within text ads, that's also crucial for the future. What are business objectives in that regard? We talk about revenue, profit, basket margin. We are talking about customer lifetime value, or it can be some dedicated score that you already are trying to create out there. And the thing there is, the important thing is, in the end, it should always lead to a dedicated ad. And how can we achieve this? How can we make sure that the business objectives are part of the game in the future on text ads? really about structuring the campaigns and making sure that we get those informations into the system. So in the end, the next step from having the funnel a summary on the campaign level, you're going to get into the business objective level. Like we have here in the example, we have profit, create 3 campaigns, high profit, medium profit, low profit. How can you realize this? Make sure at first you have a product scoring or product valuing in place. And then you're able, based on thresholds, based on certain certain values, numbers, to really calculate the business objective. Or in the other way, if you're not really that advanced, you can do so by mapping. For example, some brands are really important for you. Some categories are really important for you. If you're going to combine those, you already have a good indication what is important for you. But in the end, it should everything be automatically created. And that's also where we believe the future of search should go to. So this is a difficult task, and I know some clients out there are already testing it and trying it. But when you're thinking about where search is heading, keep in mind that business objectives is really a strong go-to for the future. All right, I would like to conclude the best practice segment here with some additional tips. And we've briefly touched on a few topics here, but what I would like to highlight here is pinning. So pinning is really something that should be taken on with caution. Many of the experts have instantly after the switch was announced or the sunset was announced, advertised, all right, use pinning as strong as possible. But if you use pinning, if you're pinning all 3 headlines, if you're pinning always to descriptions, that leads to a misuse of RSS. You're not taking advantage of the full power. So if you really want to control and focus, make sure to not use more than 1 pin on the description or on the headline, because then you still have the flexibility of the machine learning from Google. All right, as we are quite short on time, I would like to come to the conclusion, to the recap. As we have outlined, new ETAs cannot be created and cannot be advertised anymore. Existing ETAs will be advertised, but cannot change. So the switch from RSS to ETAs can be eased a little bit, but the ETAs need to be created before the 30th of June. The RSS itself need a new way of writing text and need a new way of a new structure on the campaigns and the ad groups. And what I've tried to explain is the time frame here is really key. So there are already some steps you can take, or you might have already taken, which is on the status quo. But there is something that you already can advance when it comes to short term and already thinking about the long term. Because in the end, no matter the solution, to really leverage the full capabilities of RSAs, you need to be thinking about in new ways and terms how to create campaigns and how to create ads in search. Thanks a lot. I'm really looking forward now to your questions.
Thank you, Günther. Thank you for that. So indeed, there are 2 questions, and I think we still got 5 more minutes at least to cover those. So one question was about which concerns, threats, implications do you think does the PMAX launch have on RSAs? And what should you do in regards to any threats or concerns you might see?
So I think it's very worthwhile, as you have already outlined there, to really have a close look in there. But you should not be too cautious, and you should not be too afraid to. So really think about already your campaigns, what really is powerful and where your campaigns are basically not that good. And really, if you identify any kind of patterns, you basically could already try with those who are not powerful, replicate this and use PMAX for this. Because in the end, if there's certain patterns detected and you can transfer them to PMAX, you can be at least assured that Google is trying the best to really recreate the power. I would be a little bit cautious on your highly performant campaigns, because in the end, it could very well be that they are the true and the bread and butter of your performance marketing. And there, I'm a little bit more hesitant. But I think what you have explained, Stoffer, beforehand, the most important thing is testing it out. Because in the end, it might be true for you that it works, but it might be not true for your competitor or a friend who is working in a different company. So it's really within you, within your company, that might be really special on that.
All right, thank you for that. There was another question in regards to how many RSAs per ad group do you recommend?
So we follow here the guideline from Google, and the reason is pretty simple. So first of all, this the recommendation is 1. We follow the guidelines of Google because in the end, of course, you could add additional RSAs, but then it will get really, really complicated. Because in the end, then you have a lot of different variables, and there might be somewhere the breakdown where you're not able to really make sure that the message you still have the possibility to getting across. So I think if you're perfectly using RSA, you're using 1. In case in future, if there are dedicated other capabilities by Google coming up, it might be possible to use additional ones. Of course, it right now is already possible, but we follow here the recommendation of Google because in the end, right now, as the setup is, 1 is in that regard, the true answer.
All right, thank you. Maybe a last one, then we got covered everything. Someone asked, looking at business objectives with RSAs, does that mean you do not target campaigns based on audience rather than actually looking into products which serve certain business goals, e.g. high margin products? How would you see that?
Yes, but the important thing here is not limited to products, because products is really only part of what makes search campaigns so strong. It's really about the combinations, as we have identified. For many of you, category and manufacturer, category and brand combinations are strong. And I think there is really the true value, because in the end, you cannot spend endlessly. You have a limited budget. And if you identify the true, so to speak, your stars with within your assortment, then focus on those. And I think identifying those is really the key, and is really also the important thing moving forward. So it's not about right now starting already and switch everything to business objectives, completely abandon your campaign structure and make something new, but rather think about what in your company is really the main business objective you're working for. For some, it's profit. For some, it's still revenue, but it also can be basket margin. It also can be CLV. And this is really the first step, thinking about those and making sure that you have the data available, because then in the end, it gets a lot easier to create those campaign structures.
All right, thank you for that. And I would say let's wrap it up here. Thanks for everyone joining today. Thank you for staying a little bit ahead of, or staying a little bit longer than the actual time box was scheduled. I hope it was relevant and we could share some of our knowledge here. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any follow-up questions. As said, we will make the recording and the presentation available afterwards. And yeah, a pleasant rest of the day and evening. Thank you.
Thanks.